realize there's love that you can't buy. Thank God for kids.
How does the obligation to report work? If there is something you have to report, just do it. You cannot let your feeling bad for the bio parents affect you, and you cannot be soft-hearted. Your loyalty is to the kids and what's safest for them. We've had many instances where we've had to report something to the county. Here are some examples. The bio mom takes kids to a restricted family member's house during a visit. The bio parents take kids in a car that they have been told by the county the kids are not allowed in. The bio parents hit the kids while on a visit. The bio parents are screaming at the kids and berating them. The kids report prior acts of the bio parents to you. The bio parents not feeding the kids while on visitation. The bio parents leaving the kids home alone all night. When the bio parents have supervised visits, but the required supervisor wasn't present. You'll have some cases where you have to testify what you saw or heard in court. This has happened to us only several times in our 8 years, out of probably over 50 things we've had to report to the county. I know this ratio is disappointing to hear, but as I'm sure I've touched on in other videos, the county workers are generally overworked and just do not care about doing their jobs. My wife has gotten to the point where she still reports everything because we're supposed to, and sometimes it may help, but she is generally convinced it is a waste of time. To help, I'm going to give you a sample of a case where my wife had to testify and then just a quick summary of what's typical. In the case where she had to testify, we had done a respite for a sibling group of 2. The respite was for a week long. At the end of the respite, my wife had significant enough concerns about the behavior of one of the children, and to some degree the second child, that she made the appropriate calls and reports with the county with regard to him, the older sibling, potentially being a sociopath and that he was a risk to other children, specifically younger children. About a year later, when the paternal grandparents of a 2-year-old younger sibling to this sibling group were in court, since my wife had been the only one of many foster parents to make the appropriate reports, she was the only one on file, so she was called to testify about the behavior of the older siblings. As pathetic as it is, Sarah, my wife, ended up being the only meaningful first-person witness at trial and ultimately went through a detailed court hearing where she was cross-examined by 5 or 6 attorneys. But the net effect was that the younger child was removed and allowed to be adopted by her grandparents. This was a real victory for her well-being. The other thing that happens is that the bio parents have court hearings every 4 to 6 months. And as foster parents, you're encouraged to go to these hearings. It is not unusual to be asked a question at one of those hearings with regard to something that you've disclosed to the county, such as something the children have confided in you or that you've witnessed. Basically, your duty to report is real. It's important, and although it largely feels like a waste of time, I strongly encourage you to do it, as in the rare case you can, as Sarah did, make a huge life-changing event for a child.
To thank the Lord for his guiding light and pray they turn out right. Thank God for kids.